This morning, it is a day that we all separate a little bit. Not only first of all, and first most, it's a Sunday, and it says, "Come rest on a Sunday. Come and present yourselves, gather together in His house." But it's also a Sunday we call Mother's Day. You can take a seat. I've seen it. It is Mother's Day across our nation. On May 10th, it was Mother's Day in the country of Mexico, and I saw a lot of Facebook people putting on, "Hey, happy Mama's Day, happy this and that." And so this morning, ladies, it is your morning. It is your day. I'm going to give you some sound advice. Milk it for all you can get, because, it only comes around once a year. I just pray that they celebrate you throughout the year. And this morning I have a privilege of speaking to you ladies as well as you sons and daughters. So everybody pretty much qualifies. Don't turn off your ear because you're saying, "Well, I'm not a mother." No, neither am I, don't worry. But I am a son, I am a daughter, and many of you are sons. And some of you have traveled far to be here by your mama. You can squeeze her, she can pull your hair, whatever form of endearment you have to them, just express it. And I'm going to take you this morning a little bit to what the Word of God and what the Word of God tells us about a woman, and one that we call a mother. But beforehand, I want you to check out this video. I took a little bit of time to just ask some of our ladies here at church and just ask them a few questions and just hear what they have to say.
Our son to remember all the good times we spent together, the fun we had, and growing up. I know there was times, that things didn't go the way he wanted, or we were doing just from our heart what it was best for him. He's a wonderful son. He's a wonderful son. What can I say? There wouldn't be enough to say about him. What a wonderful, generous, loving. And he's very witty, like his mom. So, like I said, he's just a wonderful son, and I give thanks to God for lending me a great son.
So I thought, it symbolically, I think I come across very bold, and so does my mother, I love that about my mom. She taught me how to be somebody bold and to stand up for what I believe in. And that was imprinted in me. And so my situation is different because I have boys, and because my boys are different, they're special. And to say, what am I going to leave Derek? What is Derek going to remember me? How is Derek going to remember me? How is Canaan going to remember me? My thought was my verse that the word that the Lord gave me a long time ago, 2 Corinthians verse 12, verse 9, my grace is sufficient. My grace is sufficient for you. This is how we believe. This is who we are. Canaan knows that we come to church, we believe in God. And Derek, he knows this place. He can roll around in his wheelchair, and he knows where he is. If that's what I'm leaving my children, that we believe in God, then I've accomplished something as a mom. What am I leaving my children? What was imprinted on me is, don't give up. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
I wrote this poem that I wanted to share with you guys for my daughter, and it speaks a lot of what I want to leave her and what I want her to learn from me. I want to be more for her. I want to conquer my fears. I want to stand up for what is right. I want to listen. I want to learn. I want to dream. I want to be a friend for her. She sees my imperfections. She sees my quirks. She is mine. She will grow up to be far greater than I because I prayed for that. She will walk with God because I displayed that. She'll be far greater than I, my daughter. She's picking up everything I do, from the sayings I say to the craft. She wants to paint just like me. So everything I do, I want to be the best at it. I want to work hard because I know my daughter is watching me.
As you heard various of the ladies, they kept bringing up a word, and this word was imprints. Now, when I kept asking God, okay, Lord, how can we put this together where I'm not using this crazy idea? And the only word that I could come up with is imprints. Now, you know that we're all imprinted with something. Now, genetically speaking, many of us have qualities of our parents. Either you look like your mother or you look like your father. Hopefully, as women, we look like our mother, because a father version of me, a woman version of my father, I don't know. But when they would tell us when we were little, oh, you look like your mother, and then you'd see someone else in the family, oh, you look like your father. I was always mad because I wanted to look like my mom. So, I love my dad with all my heart, but it was my mother that I really, really aimed to always want to be like. She was a woman that I believe imprinted me so much that every day of my life, I see a reflection of her. And some of us grew up loving our mothers and going, man, my mama's words are amazing. And some of us, well, we turned a deaf ear, saying, oh, Mom, your advice, it's old-fashioned. Your advice is something of the past, and it really doesn't make a difference in who I am today. And sometimes our attitudes are that way. So this morning, I'm going to be speaking to both moms, because I'm going to challenge you, sons and daughters, because I'm going to remind you. Now, we're going to look into the book of Proverbs. Now, it's an Old Testament book. And Proverbs has what it exactly says, a lot of advice. And ladies, if you've ever taken the time to read the book of Proverbs 31, chapter 31, it's a scary chapter. When you open it up, it puts a list of this Proverbs 31 woman. I don't know if you've seen it, and it's a list, man. It's like about 14 verses, and it talks about what a woman should be like. And some of us, it's intimidating. Let me read some of it. Who can find a wife with a strong character? She is worth more than jewels. Young guys, check that out. Who can find a wife with strong character? She's worth more than the value of a good woman. Her husband trusts her with all his heart, and he does not lack anything good. She helps him and never harms him in all of the days of her life. She seeks out wool and linen with care and works with willing hands. She is like a merchant ship. She brings her food from far away. She wakes up while it is still dark and gives food to her family and portions of food to her female servants. She picks out a field and buys it. She plants a vineyard from the profits she has earned. She puts strength like a belt and goes to work with energy. That one, I've highlighted it in my Bible because I sometimes tend to forget that. She sees that she is making a good profit. Her lamp burns late at night. She puts her hands on the distaff and her fingers hold the spindle. She opens her hand to the oppressed and stretches them out to the needy people. She does not fear for her family when it snows, because her whole family has a double layer of clothing. She makes quilts for herself. Her clothes are made of linen and purple cloths. Her husband is known at the gates, and he sits there with the leaders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them and delivers belts to the merchants. She dresses with strength and nobility, and she smiles at the future. She speaks with wisdom, and on her tongue there is tender instruction. She keeps a close eye on the conduct of her family, and she does not eat bread of idleness. Now, ladies, can we all go, phew? There is no way that I can meet that list of prerequisites or what was told to us in the Word of God that a woman should be. That's a very hard pattern to fill. It's a very hard map to follow, because this is a very, very independent, strong woman. But when I look at my mother, I can see aspects of that, characteristics of that. Ladies, I'm not telling you go buy a land and go plant a vineyard. No. I'm not telling you go sew your own clothes. That's why we have, TJ Maxx and Marshalls. We go buy it. Those are, let's not take it to what it says literal, but let's take it to what it means. How are we wise with our money? The world nowadays tells us, it's for yourself, mama, it's for yourself. And sometimes, sadly enough, I see children go without because mama has to have. My sisters both work in school, and they often say, a lot of these kids come to school hungry. And they can't think. Some of them show up without, taking a bath. My sister was sharing a story about a young boy that, brothers and sisters. Now, I want to show you this because I also want to lift up those women that get up before the kids to make their breakfast. Take every night and throw a load in the laundry because they have to wear clean clothes. How about you ladies that take the time to throw away the trash because the son or daughter forgot? How about those moments? What about folding the bed over and over again, even if you've taught them how to fold a bed? Those are moments that nobody sees. These young men show up about noon to school. Let me tell you why. Because their mother is neglecting them, and she has them taking care of the little baby. So the child is up until about midnight to 1 o'clock taking care of what the mother's responsibilities are. See the extreme cases. So ladies, you do all that you do for your sons or daughters. That it does not go unseen. Trust me, there were moments when I saw my mother do stuff for us that I took for granted. I got home, there was dinner. There was a breakfast when I got up. I wouldn't leave without a $5 handshake. She would, come here, come here, come here. She'd chase me in a little wheelchair. She'd, come here, come here. I'm like, what's up, Mom? I'm in my 30s and 40s, and she's coming after me. And I'm like, yeah, Mom. She goes, here's $5. People would laugh at me and say, your mother gives you $5. Yes, she gives me $5. Because what does she do? It says she invests into what she believes in. See, it's just part of what we're told. The clothing, my mother would, yes, we shopped at secondhand stores when there was moments you couldn't buy at the other store. And she washed it so good it looked new. The sacrifices that they make. They go without a lot of times. They go without sleep. I've seen some of you new mamas. You're walking around like little zombies. But the baby, man, she looks plumpy and nicely dressed too. Mom's hair could be sticking out here, but the baby looks cute. Those are sacrifices you make. You do without so that they can have. I've seen you also sitting in those baseball games, as boring as anything to me. But there's a mother cheering that little kid on that can barely hold a bat. That's a mama for you. Ladies, you do it not because of the praise it will receive, but because of the love you desire to leave. And that's what this scripture part of it. Now, if you noticed, I started in the middle. I didn't start on the first verse because the first verse is a little different. And I want you to go back to that. That's going to apply to the rest of us. But I want you to see how this woman has put before us a challenge that we have to trust God in what we do. The greatest imprint that you can leave on your son or daughter is your prayers over them, is your faith, is your trust. Because through you, they will see what a woman is like. Why does he say, who can find a wife of strong character? One of our ladies said, I have strong character. Now, she shared a little bit with me about her great-grandma. She says her great-grandma would walk around with guns. I'm like, really? She goes, yeah, I don't know why. She goes, my great-grandmother would walk around with a gun in her hand. I'm like, wow. Strong character. She goes, I think that's where I got my strong character from. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And she goes, and then later on, she goes, my grandmother would have a Dr. Pepper in her purse. Not that she was going to drink it, but just in case somebody came around, man, she would whack him one. I'm like, wow, I don't want to know what's in your purse, because if that's what you've learned from, there has to be something intense in there. But she brought me back to this, and she goes, but now I know how to stand up and be protected through prayer and through waiting on God. And I'm like, wow, how we have changed things. How women that we've been taught. Some of us were taught amazing cooking skills. Not me. I used to, man, why do you want me to cook? So if you're a kid and you look at your ladies, don't get frustrated with them because they don't want to clean. They don't wake up going in the morning and saying, I want to go clean with Mom. We don't do that. We didn't. Come on, we were sons and daughters at one time. We didn't do that. I know I didn't. She'd say, throw the trash. Me and my two sisters, because there was 3 of us, we'd fight to see who had to go do it. It wasn't a volunteer and I wanted to do, but that she made us, so she taught us. And it's nothing wrong with actually teaching with intention. They're your children. They're your sons and daughters. They're your little ones. And now some of you ladies with gray hair, you have some of those kids taller and bigger than you, but you can still put them down. They're your kids. I don't care what. My mother would just give me that look. All it took was that look. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And I was old. I'm like, oh, it didn't even take a move of her hand. It just took a look. And some of you know what kind of look I'm talking about. You know, when you're walking, Mom, I know this and I know that. And it just takes a look from your mother to make you change your mind. That's the influence of a mother. And I want you to always recognize that, ladies. Don't give up. Don't, keep doing what you're doing, because you're changing a generation. You're changing lives. You're changing those that are in your house. Yes, maybe they're not going to be presidents, but they're going to be a leader of something. So dream into them, give into them. I know there's some of them are very spoiled, and I've seen some of them. But you got to love them anyways. What does it say? There's never been an ugly child in the eyes of a mother, right? Because everybody else may never say, wow, how cute. But my mama always said I was beautiful. I never had to hear it from anybody else. But before I walked out, she'd go, whoo, you look beautiful. That was enough for me. Those words carried me through many moments. And those are the influences and the imprints you have as mothers. Now, the reason why I brought this part of the scripture, Proverbs 31:10 through 27, is because I want you to see what the setup, okay? This right here, Proverbs, actually started with verse 1 through 9. It was written by a king. His name is Lemuel. King Lemuel wrote these words. Why do you think he wrote these words? It says in Proverbs, the sayings of King Lemuel, a prophetic revelation used by his mother to discipline him. Now, before I go there, I want you to hear some famous words from one of our amazing presidents of the United States. Now, I know he's long gone and dead. Now, this gentleman was a president during very troublesome times in our country. He was a man that had to make decisions to change the future of our nation. And what he says, I remember my mother's prayers, and they have always followed me. They have clung to me all my life. Words from our amazing president, Abraham Lincoln. Let me tell you a little story about Abraham Lincoln. He had 2 mamas. He was raised by 2 women. His mother, that loved him dearly, that bore him, died by accident because she drank some tainted milk. And she suddenly died at the young age of 9. He lost his first mother. A few years later, his father decided to remarry and find a wife and a mother for his children. Now, I thought that was pretty cool, because he intentionally went looking for the right woman, not just for him, but for his children. And things happen like that. Life can be with others. He went out, found this woman that Abraham Lincoln later called his angel. Now, this woman writes in one of her memoirs, she says, he was like a wild child. Because dad, we'll be real. I can tell when a dad is taking care of a kiddo. All I got to see is the kiddo, and I'm going, oh, my Lord, your shoes don't match. Those ponytails are a little off-centered. That's fortunate, because some of them don't get combed. Some of you dads do a really good job, but you can usually tell when mom's not around. And this lady saw that those children, Abraham Lincoln and his family, his brothers and his sister actually, were missing a mother. And she said that they were very worn, torn. They were very, in a manner, to me, animal-like. But she said she took them in. And she brought them in, and she made them their own. And some of you ladies have been placed in that circumstance where you're taking someone else's children, but you're taking them as your own. That's all that you're asked is take them as your own. You have that love enough for a child maybe that you didn't bore, but that God has placed in your life. You get to imprint someone else. And when I read what he said, if you know something about Abraham Lincoln, he made some major decisions that have changed the course of our country. But that man attributes it to the prayers of his mother. And when I look at that, I'm like, wow, how amazing. Your whispers, your tears, your moments of quietness by yourself when nobody's hearing you yell out why this kid is the way he is. God hears it. and God will change them. And that's the influence you have. You influence our taste. You influence our fashion. You influence our, man, I remember the first time I went to the theater, and it wasn't something that we did when we were growing up. I sat there with the most uncomfortable feeling because I could see my mama's eyes on me. She wasn't there at the theater, but I knew she was not very happy. You know, mothers, give them the words. They follow you through. They follow you through. There is not a moment where we do not walk where we don't hear her voice. And I used to say, God, is that you? No, my mama. It was my mama. And she imprinted in me so many things that as a daughter, I look back and I go, wow, thank you for being a tenacious woman, for being a strong woman, for being a woman that stood up for me. If I knew I was in trouble, I'd say, Mom, it was their fault. She goes, what? But she was also wise. Ladies, that's the role you have to play. That's the awesome position that you have been given this time in your life, is to be a mother, is to be an influencer, is to be a change maker. That's who you are. Don't belittle the opportunities that you have daily. If it's to change a pamper, change the pamper. Because trust me, those around us really appreciate you. If it's to make certain that child does their homework, they're not going to love you for it, but later on we're going to appreciate that you took the time to make me do what I didn't want to do. She made us throw the trash. Do you think I enjoyed throwing the trash? No. She made us wash dishes, and not just wash them. We had to dry them and then put them away. Do you think I enjoyed that? No. But you can go, when I wash dishes, you can make certain that they're put away. Why? Because that woman taught me how to be different. She taught me the simpleness of faith, despite circumstances. All this is told to us in the book of Proverbs. Everything. What does she say? She speaks with wisdom, and her tongue there is tender instructions. Did my mother yell? Very much so, thank you. They weren't always tender instructions to me. There were moments when she just had to scream out what she wanted me to do. But she did it anyways. She wasn't seeking my friendship. She was seeking to imprint my life. And later on, our friendships develop. And that's where I want you to understand the verse, Proverbs 31, 1-9, it says, the king Lemuel, I might be pronouncing his name wrong, King Lemuel, the prophetic revelation of what? His mother. Now, this is where I want the sons and the daughters in this place, because I believe each of us have had a woman in your life that is either for the good or for the bad. You take who they were, and you take how they are, and you apply it to yourself. My mama was an amazing lady, and I know some of you are going to have the opportunity to go out and celebrate with her. And this is pretty much the only celebration I can pretty much do, because this is all I have. This is pretty much where my mama is, a picture. Because like many of you, we don't have her here. We don't have her physically for her to tell me how much she loves me, for her to show me how much she cares for me. I don't have her anymore. I've told the first service, I'm anxious to get to heaven, because that's where she's at. And I'm going to get to see her. She's missing from my visual, but she's not missing from my heart. And sons and daughters, your mothers will never leave you, because they've imprinted themselves in you, in your characteristics, in your mannerism, in your choices in life. They've imprinted you that way. A lot of us can be thankful for those women that have taken the time to put a little bit more extra. Me and her had a fetish for hats. And guess what? I fed her fetish and she fed mine. We love certain things. We have similarities that we were always, I would laugh. And I would look at her and I go, Mom, me and you, we loved cameras. I used to call her my Asian friend, because everywhere I turned around, there was a camera. And this was before the phone. She took her one selfie picture one time, and I have it. And she's going like, half her head is here, and we're on the side. And I go, I don't think that's a really good selfie, but it'll work. But she taught me before cameras were you know what she taught me? And I learned this lesson from the camera that she would always carry. She would carry those little green Polaroid cameras, you know, those little ones, like the disposable ones. And you could hear her go, neck, click. Those that make it obvious, you're going to take a picture. And what I always noticed about the camera, that it was always pointing my direction. It was never pointing to herself. It was always pointing out. It was pointing out because she wanted to see what effect she had on me. That's a mother. A mother doesn't look at herself and say, look at me. She goes, look at them. She gets her little chicks, like they call it. They used to call it in Spanish, los pollitos. Come get me my pollitos. And if you know what I'm talking about, those little chicks, those little kids around you, and she would surround herself. That's who she was. King Lemuel remembered her. He wrote down, because of my mother, I am. She gave him some very sound advice. If you take the time to read Proverbs 31, 1 through 9, it says, it keeps going, my son, what son whom I gave birth, what son of my prayers. Imagine that. Your mama says that about you. What son? You are an answered prayer. You are an answered prayer to a mama's cry. There's not a person, I don't care what society tells you, you are not a mistake. You are not just a bypass. You are an answered prayer. And you are here with purpose and with meaning because that woman bore you. I've heard labor is painful. I remember when my nephew was born, I walked in a little bit after he was born. My sister had a cesarean, and I looked at her and I said, whoa, I'll be back later when you're taken care of. And I walked back out. So you don't tell me that children cost you. Children cost you physically, emotionally, and mentally. They cost you. So ladies, invest into them. And I promise you, you will see the fruit of your investment. You will see the answers to your prayers. And sons and daughters, be the answer to the prayer of your mama. Remember those. I remember my grandmother. My ladies, and I kind of relate to 2 Timothy 1:5. Timothy is told by Paul, the Apostle Paul, Timothy, his disciple, young man. Paul looks at him and he tells him, he goes, I'm reminded of how sincere your faith is. The faith that first lived in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice. I'm convinced that it also lives in you. Guess what? I had a praying grandma. About midnight to 1 o'clock, I could hear this little chitter chattering. I'm like, she didn't see TV, so it wasn't the television. She didn't like the radio. So I knew there was something. And guess what? It was her. About midnight to 1 o'clock, she'd just sit there and pray over every single son and daughter, over every single grandchild, over every single great-great-grandchild, because we were about 4 or 5 generations down. And she would pray. Sons and daughters, you are an answer to a prayer of a mother. Mothers, you pray for your children. It all works together because we're one generation and we got to influence each other. You have the opportunity to hold them, to love them, to kiss them. Those are your mamas. If you know anyone, his name is Charles Spurgeon. If you've ever heard of this man, great man used by God, a man that God used greatly at the beginning of our faith and how the church has grown because of the wisdom that God had given this man. Charles Spurgeon writes this. He says, never could it be possible for any man to estimate that he owes to a godly mother. Certainly I have not the powers of speech with which to set forth my valuation of the choice blessings which the Lord bestowed on me in making me the son of one who prayed for me and prayed with me. How can I ever forget her tearful eye when she warned me to escape the wrath that was to come? How can I ever forget when she bowed her knee and with her arms around my neck, she prayed, oh, that my son would live for you. Charles Spurgeon, years down the road, his father was an evangelist. He would preach and go out. And Charles Spurgeon remembers what his mother taught him. Ladies, that is what you do. That is who you are. That is the opportunity and the place that you have in our lives. You have that effect in our lives. You have that imprint in our lives. And I'm going to go to the end of Proverbs 31. The last few verses of it say this. Because today we're honoring you. I hope that, man, they take you out to some amazing restaurant where you do not have to cook. You just get to eat. And then guess what? You get up and you walk out. You don't have to worry about the dishes. You don't have to worry about the trash. Nothing. This is their day, okay, sons and daughters and husbands. Because some of the babies, they can't do that yet. You know, baby can't say, I love you, Mom, happy Mother's Day. They can't. So you have I hope, gentlemen, that you take the time to wish that to your beautiful wife you call the mother of your children. Take them out. Honor them. He doesn't end. He recognizes who did it. He applies what she has done. And then he says in the end, he says, her children and her husband stand up and bless her. In addition, he sings her praises by saying, many women have done noble work, but you have surpassed them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty evaporates, but a woman who fears the Lord shall be praised. A woman who fears the Lord shall be praised. Praised is another word for honor. She shall be honored. How do we honor them? Not just by one day a year. The other 365 days we forget they exist. We honor them daily. My brother, he got married and had his family, and there was not an evening that he did not call my mom. Even if it was, hi Mom, how you doing? Oh, good. He was asleep on the other line, but there was every evening, there was a phone call. So sons and daughters, if you haven't given your mama a call in a while, give her a call. Take the opportunity to speak and say, thank you. Thank you for putting up with me. Thank you for doing what you did. These mothers change our lives. They change our paths. I grew up in a home where we were called migrant workers, and we would do a lot of migrating from state to state. And there was moments when Mom would say, let's pick up and go. And my dad would, he would take us and we would go to another state to go work and do some of the labor that was needed. And one year, about 18, when I graduated from high school, I turned to my mom and I said, it was about gin season, which gin is the cotton gins in Texas, and that's where we would spend our winter at. And I looked at my mom and I said, Mom, I don't want to do this anymore. You know, you're an 18-year-old snot-nosed kid, doesn't know much, but I graduated. Hello, I thought I knew stuff. I graduated and I told her, Mom, I don't want to be like this anymore. I want things to change. And she listened to me. An immature 18-year-old that knew nothing of life. And I said, I want to be different. Can I go to college? I had gotten some scholarships, and she looks at me, she goes, well, you know, we're leaving. And this was a family move. It was always a family move. It was always about the family. And I said, but Mom, can we change? And I just went to her and I said, I'd love to go to college. Give me an opportunity to go to college. And you know what that would mean? That would mean splitting up the family. Because financially, my dad couldn't stay there. He had to go work. So I didn't know what effect I had. She came to me and she tells me, when it was time to leave and start to pack up the house, she says, we're not going. I looked at her, what do you mean? She says, we're staying. My mother that moment taught me sacrifice. She taught me that she was going to stand for me. And that though she didn't know what I was doing, but she trusted me enough to change our lives. That winter season, me and my sister stayed back and I went to college. Thank you for that bold woman that taught me that it was possible. We lived on egg salad sandwiches. I don't eat them to this day. But we lived on egg salad sandwiches because of the sacrifices my mother made for me. Ladies, when I say honor you, we want to honor you for the sacrifices and for the endless nights that you've taken to speak to us. The moments when you think nobody's listening to your counsel, we're listening. To the times when you say, man, those kids, they don't pick up. We'll pick up eventually, I promise. In those moments when the young 18, 19-year-old son says, I want my independence, they always remember their mama. We want to honor you this morning. And as I end, I'm going to give you another quote from one of our other presidents that, again, was placed into a time when our country needed direction. But guess what? His mama influenced him. President Theodore Roosevelt writes this. He says, when all is said, it is the mother, and the mother only, who is a better citizen than the soldier who fights for his country. The successful mother, the mother who does her part in rearing and training boys and girls who are to be men and women of the next generation, is of greater use to our community and occupies, if she would only realize it, a more honorable as well as a more important position than any man. The mother is the one who is a supreme asset to our nation. She is more important, by far, I love this part, than the successful statesman or the businessman or the artist or the scientist. That, she says, because she plays a crucial role in changing the lives of the children she rears. That is a mother. I hope that you can take this day and look back at what your mama maybe taught you. My mama said, don't ever leave any evidence that you were there. In other words, clean up. And I did. To this day, I still do. She says, be faithful to God. Be wise with your money. My first job was a Sonic car hop. We didn't make much, okay? But I knew that when I had $5 in tips, I was going to give 50 cents in tithing. That was a given. Why? Because my mama taught me. And to this day, I still do. I want you to take this day, sons and daughters, and go, man, that little lady, I called her my viejita. She knew what she was talking about. You have the opportunity to honor them. Physically, you have the opportunity to speak to them. Call them up. And even if they gripe you out, that's okay. Says, I love you, Mom. Bye. Quick and easy, not a problem. You can do this. I have one message that my mama left me. Now, my mama's been gone from me for about 2 years. This is my second Mother's Day without her. She hated this picture, and I called it her little sheep picture because she looks like a sheep, a little lamb with curly hair. And she would always say, why are you always taking pictures of me? I go, because I want to remember you. I want to remember you. I may not have you, but there's a message that I keep in my phone, and now I have on my computer, and every electronic device that I have a message. She left it to me one year. About 3 years ago, she left it on there. And I've never deleted it because I may never hear her voice again, but her advice and her ways lived through me. Her character has made me who I am today. And I know many in this place can say the same thing. You can say, thank you, Mama, for doing what you did. Thank you for insisting that I continue my education. Thank you for insisting that I save. Thank you for insisting for me not to marry that guy that I waited for the right one. Sometimes that advice you got to take. But this little message that I have on my phone says, she tells me in Spanish, I just called to see what you were doing. I just wanted to remind you that you're strong. I want to let you know you're strong. That's the only verbal message I have left of my mother. And when there are moments when I just don't feel I have the courage to stand up, because there are moments, ladies, when you can't stand and you're just plain tired. Situations have worn at you. Decisions are just frustrating you. But she reminds me, stand. You're strong. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to stand this morning, and we're going to do something a little bit different. King Lemieux ends the Proverbs 31 with honoring the mothers. And guess what? We're going to do something, because I had a mother that prayed for me endlessly. And some of you ladies have taken the time to pray for your children endlessly. Don't give up. Continue, continue, continue.